Right, so nothing quite screams wrongdoing like dodgy scrutiny, like telling MPs that they aren't allowed to ask questions about stuff the government is doing. And for this Tory government, boy, have they made a habit of that. You only need to look at the stuff coming out of the pandemic inquiry to see that, virtually on a daily basis at the moment. But for weeks now, we've seen stuff on social media regarding UK military movements from a UK airbase in Cyprus to Israel. Now this raises questions, doesn't it? What are they up to? What is the government doing, flying military aircraft into and out of Israel? Maybe these are aid drops, perhaps, food and water being sent down to people in Palestine so they needn't die of thirst or starvation, but can wait to be blown up instead again once the shooting begins once more. Humanitarian pauses and all of that. But if it were that, why not just say so? Instead, an MP, unnamed, has now formally asked about these movements into and out of Israel from Cyprus, and that information has been blocked by the government. Fortunately for us, however, we have a high calibre of investigative journalists in this country. That they don't work for the mainstream media, though, shows their devotion to journalism and not money. And thanks to them, we might just know now, and we need to know, because democracy lives or dies by what people do about such things. But if our government are choosing to keep us in the dark, how can we hold them to account for what they are doing, allegedly in our names? Right, so what has been going on here then, Damo? Well, if you want to know what is going on in the world of military and intelligence services worldwide, your go-to alternative media sources to find out should definitely include Declassified UK. And they produced 3 really key articles in the last 2 weeks about this, 2 of them since last Friday in fact, regarding the movements of UK military assets from RAF Akrotiri in Cyprus, a UK airbase we have stationed there. It's been there since the 50s, originally built in connection with the Suez Crisis. Because of Cyprus's close proximity to both the Israeli and Gaza coastlines, the distance from RAF Akrotiri to Tel Aviv by air, for instance, is only 180 miles, 40-minute flight time. It is rather nicely placed to fly into and out of Israel. But why would a Cypriot-based UK military flights be going into and out of Israel to start with, though? It's one thing to be on their side. It's one thing for our pathetic weakling of a Prime Minister Rishi Sunak to tell Benjamin Netanyahu that he hopes he wins. But it is quite another for us to be undertaking any kind of military activity ourselves here, isn't it? So how do we know they've been doing this if our government won't say anything about it? Well, because flight logs get kept, and these aren't classified. They can't be, because airspace is shared by military and commercial flights, and they both need to know when it is safe for them to fly and when it isn't. And Declassified have been observing these military flight logs. Anyone can, online in fact. There's a site called Radar Box, which tracks global flight information, including anything coming into and out of Akrotiri, which has to be a military flight coming from there, as Cyprus has a separate commercial airport. And they've counted no fewer than 33 flights from RAF Akrotiri to Tel Aviv's Ben Gurion airport since the bombing began. There were no flight records of UK aircraft going to Israel from Cyprus before the events of October the 7th, and Declassified checked records for this going back as far as August. So we can safely assume here this has something to do with the ongoing military action going on out there at the moment. Adding further weight to this are flights from the UK to RAF Akrotiri, the first of which in a while showed up just 4 days after atrocities began on the 11th of October. So naturally you'd expect journalists to ask questions about this, to question the Ministry of Defence about this, and they did, to which the MOD admitted to sending 17 flights into the Israeli capital, though would not confirm dates, personnel on board, or any details about what cargo they might have been carrying, since all 33 flights, according to Declassified that they've spotted, have been transport planes. One that landed in Tel Aviv yesterday was identified as an A400M Atlas military transport, which apparently is capable of carrying 116 soldiers, or up to 37 tons of payload, or is able to carry an entire Chinook helicopter. So these things are beasts. What are they doing? Well, so the UK government confirmed 17 flights. Declassified have counted 33. We know they're doing something, they're carrying something in, but they won't say what that is. So now you move on to an MP asking about this just yesterday. Now our elected representatives are there to hold government to account, but they can only do that if they answer questions submitted to be asked. An unnamed MP who spoke to Declassified said that their question in connection to this had been blocked, but actually the Tories have gone even further than that, as they have now blocked all parliamentary questions in relation to activities at RAF Akrotiri. That's full censorship of government activity, putting them beyond scrutiny. That should never be allowed, no matter what the deal is. Keeping critical information, need to know stuff from the public, well, that's one thing. But that shouldn't extend to Parliament. They need to know to ensure the government is not involved in any criminality or things it should not be doing under international law. There has to be a level of scrutiny here somewhere, and right now on this, there's none. The International Criminal Court is already investigating the situation out there. Could the UK find itself somehow implicated in something shady here? Well, it does make you wonder what they are hiding if not even Parliament is allowed to know. But perhaps we don't need to get it from our government. Perhaps other military movements might give the game away, or at the very least offer us a bit of a clue. You see, it isn't just British aircraft flying into and out of a UK military base on Cyprus right now. The US are using it as well. Now, the US has air bases itself all over Europe, as does NATO, whose bases the US are also using. And this time it is Israeli newspaper Haaretz who are reporting that some 40 US transport craft have arrived at RAF Akrotiri, with half the flight said to be carrying military aid, because of course they are. Again, in the 2 months leading up to October 7th, there was no US flight activity into and out of RAF Akrotiri. So all of this, again, is obviously connected to the current genocide going on in Gaza. Are any of the US planes flying into and out of Israel too? According to Haaretz, yes, but the MOD won't confirm or deny as per usual. However, it is incredulous to believe they don't know what the US are doing, since they are using a British airbase right now. We also might have an idea of the kind of military aid being flown in as well. And this has come courtesy of an internal leak from the US Defense Department and a list of weaponry allegedly being supplied to Israel, and it is horrifying. 2,000 Hellfire missiles, the warheadless missiles instead fitted with 6 blades, which deploy to cut down whatever they're fired at, along with Apache helicopter chain gun ammunition. 57,000 artillery gun shells, 400 mortars, M141 bunker buster munitions, 300 plus Tamir interceptors, which are used for Israel's Iron Dome defense system, and 75 light tactical vehicles. Are the US flying these into Israel, or are UK planes assisting the US with the final leg of these deliveries? It's not exactly Amazon, this, is it? We don't know, but the UK transport planes aren't flying in and out of Israel for fun. Those in the know in our government will be Grant Shapps, the Defence Secretary, James Cleverly, who was the Foreign Secretary for part of this conflict, and David Cameron now going forwards as the current Foreign Secretary. And as I've already mentioned, the ICC are already investigating what's going on. They have the jurisdiction to investigate war crimes and crimes of genocide and prosecute in connection with that. You probably need to add Rishi Sunak to that list as well, don't you, given that he oversees all the others. Does a day in The Hague await them further down the line? Well, when they won't tell us, or even Parliament, what they are up to, it's probably no good, is it? Guilty of war crimes, well, they could be complicit. We'll have to wait and see. There'll be more on this coming out in the near future, I have no doubt. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this video useful. Please like, share and subscribe if you did. More content out daily. Please do have your say on this story in the comments below and be part of the conversation. Meanwhile, here's a video recommendation where the return of David Cameron to government is a definite win for Israel. The most pro-Israel Prime Minister ever, as Israel themselves have called him. And I'll hopefully catch you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.